Hello and welcome to this special episode of HassanSpeaks on Emirati Women's Day. Today, we gather here to celebrate the achievements and contributions of Emirati women in nation building. And we are honored to have a guest among us who's very much from here and has a very diverse background and also what lies ahead. Let's welcome Amna Al Haddad, who is true pioneer for Emirati women in sports, in journalism, and a lot of other areas such as music, and we'll know more from her as we move forward with the episode. Amna began her weightlifting journey at the age of 19 and quickly making history as first Emirati woman to compete in the Reebok Crossfit Games Open in 2012. Her transition to Olympic weightlifting in 2013 marked a new chapter as she represented the UAE in prestigious international competitions, including Arnold Sports Festival. Interesting. In 2015, Amna won 6 gold medals at the IWF Asian Interclub Championship, which cemented your position as a pioneer. Beyond sports, Amna is a passionate advocate for mental health, a journalist recognized with Fellowship Award, as well as many other endeavors that you have experienced, and going forward, we'll do more. And we will hear more from you in a while. However, we also understand that now you're making your mark in real estate and music as a drummer. Mm-hmm. Your story is about breaking barriers, and it's been inspiring, and you'll be sharing that soon with us and with the next generation of Emirati women to pursue and how they perhaps plan to pursue their dreams and with determination. Thank you very much for joining us here today, Amna, and welcome to HassanSpeaks. We are honored to have you, a very esteemed individual, and we've had many conversations in the past, but I think this one will be very much enlightening. Let's focus first on your early life and your career, right? Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit more on your, let's say, your background, your upbringing, and what led you to pursue weightlifting? That also at the age of 19, that's when we all are thinking about where we need to apply for colleges, what we need to do, and we're still not sure of our life ahead. But you were well determined at that age and pretty early on. So what's the story there?
First of all, thank you for having me today, and it's very honorable for me to be here and talk to you. We've talked many times in the past throughout our different careers. And it's a very interesting question because in our culture, we were never as women encouraged to actually compete or do sports. And I saw that there was a gap in the education that we have as women in terms of what we need to actually become healthy adults. So when it was when I was around 19, that's when I kind of discovered sports. I discovered being active. I discovered the importance actually like building muscles for your overall health, not just for you right now, but even as you grow older. And it led me to just wanting to, exercise and kind of get into it. And I was very determined to get healthy, and I was very unhappy with myself and my body at that time, and I was very depressed as well. So we're going to talk more about like mental health in this episode. And I saw the power of being active affecting me directly and my confidence and my mental health, and that is something that I wanted to continue exploring and see where it can take me.
But that's really interesting, right? The interrelation between your mental health and your physical health, and then how it impacts your career direction as well. Mm-hmm. So what challenges did you face in your journey, professionally speaking, when you first started the sports journey, let's say, especially when it comes to the experiences? You spoke about mental health and the impact. What were certain, let's say, what do you recall, what episodes do you recall that impacted this decision of yours?
So when I first started doing sports, professional sports, I first got into CrossFit. It was sort of my pre-weightlifting experience with professional sports. And during that time, I learned more about what Olympic weightlifting actually is. And I was really amazed by how challenged I was as I was around 20, 21 years old at that time, as a adult not able to learn how to run properly. I had to learn how to run. There is an actual technique how to run properly. I did not know what that technique was like. And I had to learn how to do a lot of basic body movements that I was not aware of.
Yes, I'm sure it's nothing like school, in the PE.
No
period where
jumping
we just
jacks.
learn.
No jumping jacks.
So I'm assuming there was no one from your family who was in this in this career. Were you the first one because or you had a
Yes.
mentor in the family?
No mentor. I was the first in my career. My dad was active. He used to play football with the boys back in the day, but not like a full time as a profession where, it's what you do for a living. We'll talk about that in a different point. And it was really so many challenges because, as a woman in our society, especially back in the day, we're talking 15 years ago, when I first started the journey to be an athlete, it was unheard of for a woman lifting weights. It's like, what is she doing? What is she up to? What she's trying to defy? I swear to you, I was not trying to break any stereotypes. It's what people want to think. Well, I was doing my thing. I was doing what was making me happy, what helped me release stress, and what made me feel good. So there was no one to really kind of ask on how can I go about this. I had to figure things out along the way.
But kudos to you because a lot of people who think about fitness and so forth, they would continue their journey into fitness, but thinking on a grand level of, let's say, going into Olympics or the Asian Games or so forth, this is a decision you make with commitment. And coming from a background, let's say you being the pioneer in your family, not having any particular, let's say, mentor or someone who's been through this career in the family, this must be a very game-changing decision that you made.
Yeah, and I will say it honestly, like there was a lot of resistance in the early stages from my family as well. They did not necessarily approve of what I was doing. But with time, they realized the changes that they saw in me and how it impacted me in a positive way. And that made them more understanding, not accepting, but understanding down the line and saw the value in what I was doing.
I think there's always some skepticism or sometimes this anxiousness and nervousness, whether because it's a big step. And a lot of times, let's say the elders of the family are a little bit concerned, what if not? And all of these ifs and buts can tend to accumulate. But when they see the impact as we move with time, things get better and everyone starts accepting and a lot of times even pushing that you must do this, you must complete that. But looking at it, that you've been through a lot of spheres in your career. So you have sports, you have... more recently, you're into journalism. Into real estate.
Yeah.
And you're into music. And you have been into journalism as well. The entire transitions, if I was to interview for a job, I'd say you're not focused.
Right? Yes, I can see that.
But you've achieved well endeavors that you've initiated on your own. Has there been any interlink between your, let's say, the sports determination and journalism? What's the relation there?
What's interesting is actually I did journalism before I did sports. I discovered my passion for sports and wanting to take the next big step with it and actually train for the Olympics while I was working full-time as a journalist. I had to make a tough decision and choice to actually quit my job
away.
And follow sports full on because I wanted to see how far I can go with it. And the beautiful thing is when you start something without expectation, you can really surprise yourself by how far you can go because you do not limit yourself. When you have an expectation, even if it's a high expectation, you still limit yourself. So my approach with everything that you see, that you mentioned that I'm doing, it's all about, let me try it. Let me see where I can go with it. Let me see if I can succeed in it. Let me see what I'm good at.
I think that was a very pivotal part of your journey or your career because that's what exposed you to sports. And then you started taking sports as your next career going forward. It's interesting how things play out sometimes, totally unrelated, but it makes your life going forward. And viewers, just to highlight here, you also have a wax in Madame Tussauds Dubai?
Yes, I have a wax figure in Madame Tussauds. Wow, I'm very honored to be the only female athlete in a room full of male athletes, and to be the first Emirati woman as an athlete, immortalized as a wax figure. This happened sometime during, I cannot mention the exact dates, but sometime back in the day. And then the, wax figure was launched here in Dubai in 2021. And it was a very beautiful moment, also very surreal to have another me living somewhere in Dubai that looks
I'm
exactly
assuming you've already visited and taken a selfie.
many times. Many times. It is very overwhelmingly cool. And I think it showcases that even, big platforms can recognize individual efforts that made an impact. And this is what I would like for people to realize, is that your individual effort does make an impact. So don't think, what if people don't like it? What if people don't support this? Go and do it anyway. You never know where you will reach.
The seed is put at a certain point and the fruit could come years later. Like in your case, for example, I mean, I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, had you ever had the hunch that at one point the Madame Tussauds you were visiting perhaps in the UK would have a branch here where your wax would be?
No, I had never
Presented.
seen that coming. That was like a nice surprise. It still is a surprise for me every day. Sometimes people tell me, Amna, you have a wax figure, right? I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I do. Like sometimes I actually forget about it because I'm like, is this even real?
Coming back to sports, I mean, we'll get back to the wax, but I think that's a great achievement, especially from seeing your journey, how it has played out, and your step into the sports world, which led you to further success also. So you were the first Emirati woman to compete in the Reebok Crossfit Games and later also in Asian regionals. I know you mentioned that you were not at that time thinking in any context of breaking barriers, but you eventually did, right? What kind of perhaps resistance, let's say from a professional angle, I mean, you did mention some a bit on the personal angle, but what kind of resistance or what kind of support you encountered through the journey to getting there? And then when you got there are more other questions that I'll be asking, but let's start with this.
Okay, so one of the challenges I faced early on is being told I am too old to start the sport. At that time, I was 22 years old. And
so what's a good age to start then?
7, 9.
Wow.
That's when you really want to get your body in a space where it can understand coordination, balance. That's what they do in China and Russia. That's how they train they take them from they're 3 years old, try to assess their joints, the length of their femur and their torso and everything.
There's a lot of
research around it, and I was really surprised by that kind of response. It's like, why put someone down before giving them a chance to see what they can do? And yeah, I struggled in the very beginning for maybe about a year. And then I figured out a formula for myself on how to, make it work for my age and find a way to actually get better at the sport. And I believe that anything in life, you can do it if you really want to. It's not about if you're good at it or not. It's whether you want to.
And want is not something you say, I want this. It comes from your heart, your soul, your mind, all connected together.
And you need to also have a clear goal why you want this. What does it add to you and your life at that point? So doing that really made me think, no, I'm not really old. Yeah, maybe I have tight joints. Let me see how I can make that work and work with it, because there are people and athletes who are weightlifters who have the right techniques, but the mechanics are a little bit different based on their body type. So you can work around it. It's as long as your technique is right, it will not look the same on everybody because everybody looks different. So the mechanics looks a little bit different, but the technique is the same. So that was one of the challenges I faced. And yes, it's not easy to start at a later age sport, but it is not impossible either. So that was the challenges. The support, I was lucky in some ways to find a lot of mentorship from some Emirati men who were actually athletes and in the sports field. And there is a person, his name is Wa'al Al-Sayiq. He does MMA. And he was one of the people who really supported me to learn how to navigate the very early stages of my career as an athlete. And he was there mentoring me every time I was going through like a rough time. Like, how do I deal with this? How do I raise funds? How do I get sponsors? You know, and he was very supportive. And there were some other companies, they might have only supported me like one time, but that one time made a difference, you know? And
It's always a step in the next to the next and to the next.
Exactly. But there were also other experiences that I've had where I had sponsors drop me last minute before a competition, or, you know, not actually fulfill the obligation that they were promised for me. So I actually dealt with a lot of like resistance and challenges along the way, but I told myself I'm gonna keep on going, put my head down, do the work, and here we are. We qualified for the Olympics 2016, and I had the second highest point in the team.
Wow, congratulations. Yeah, kudos to that. I think looking back, everything was worth it. I'm sure you feel the same. In this entire journey, it's a very unconventional sector as well. Right? How important was it for you to maintain an Emirati identity through that journey? Because one thing is that you're a female in perhaps in that sector, which is not usually very unconventional.
Yeah.
But then another thing is also that you had an Emirati identity attached to you as well. And how important was that to maintain?
You know, it was very interesting challenge because a lot of people back in the day did not really understand or support Emirati women in unconventional paths. But look at us now. Look at what our leadership are doing in support of Emirati women. They are pushing for them in every sector, in sports, real estate, you name it, you know? And it showcases that, again, our individual efforts back in the day is contributing to the future of Emirati women tomorrow.
Absolutely.
And we need to continue that path and not let anything stop us. And even if we are not the most conventional type of Emirati women out there, we don't have to be, but our heart, our culture, our behavior is what reflects our identity as Emirati people. It's how we treat others. It's what we're known for.
It's an interesting point that you raised, how the things have been shaping from individual effort now to collective effort as well. And we also see the impact at the society level, professionally, personally, and so forth. Looking at you as Amna and her story, what message did you hope that perhaps to send to the next generation of Emirati women through your, let's say, life journey and the experiences that you've had competing in international games that was not common back then? You took that leap and you qualified, you actually went there. And what is that message that you're hoping to give?
My message to anybody who's listening, not just Emirati women, but everybody really, is that in life, you will be presented with chances and opportunities. You either take them or you don't. If you take them, you will learn more about yourself. If you don't take them, you will continue saying no to things that might help you grow. And by not growing, you stay stagnant. When you stay stagnant, nothing changes in your life.
Sure.
But if you take opportunities, you take chances, you pursue things without knowing whether you're good at it or not, at least you will learn something about yourself. It will be a chance for you to grow as a human being, and at least you would say, I've done that. And that is something you can hold dearly to yourself and be proud of. You don't need people to be clapping for you. No, you don't. There's so many things I've done that people are not clapping for.
You do it for yourself, for your country, for what you represent. Yeah.
Exactly. And you need to find the goal and the why as to why you're pursuing the things you're pursuing. Because if you don't have a why, you'll always be like shattered everywhere. I know it seems I'm shattered everywhere with the things that I do, but I'm actually a project person type. So what I mean by that is that I like to do things that have a beginning, middle, and end.
And then you move on to the next.
And then I move on to the next thing, because everything I've done has reached some degree of a dying in the end for me. And this is a bit more of like depth and spiritual kind of talk, but After I've experienced everything in my life, there's a point where I actually stopped seeing how that particular thing is serving me. It's serving others' opinions of me, but it's not serving me anymore. If it's not bringing me joy anymore or any actual direct benefit to me at that point, after much reflection and assessment, I actually decide to move away from something, and there is no shame of doing that. We hold ourselves to this identity. I am this, and I'll be this for the rest of my life because it's what people know me for. If I deviate from that, my ego is shattered. Who am I? You are more than what you do. You are more than the activities that you do. Everything you see is that I do, it's, coming through me because I'm meant to experience it. I'm meant to share it with the world.
And which is a great part of mental health as well, because that gives you mind clarity. It gives you spoke about also understanding oneself. So in your journey, you said you find yourself or you understand yourself better. That is a crucial part of mental health as well, right? Now, you being an advocate and a very strong advocate of mental health, now, how do you see this advocacy playing a role in your journey of sports or other endeavors, also in careers that you've pursued? And how do you see the importance of this in high pressure environments?
Mental health as a topic is very broad, and we are still just opening the door in our culture and in our region. Everybody you meet at one point in their life will probably go through a period of depression or anxiety at this stage. And 1 out of 4 people suffer from depression and anxiety. And this is not even tackling actual lifelong mental illnesses some people suffer from. So mental health is just not depression and anxiety. Yeah, people, that's just the surface of it.
Correct.
You know? And as an advocate, I have shared my story many times publicly about being suicidal, taking medication, and I've gone through ups and downs. It has been a big part of my story, a big part of my journey. I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but I know each time I have better tools to handle it. And those tools come from knowing oneself. Each time I learn a bit more about myself through my experiences, going to therapy, doing healing work. All of this adds to your toolbox of how to take care of yourself,
right,
and how to manage yourself and your emotions and regulate yourself when you need to regulate yourself. I would say one of the most important thing when it comes to mental health is, first of all, acknowledging that there is an issue. If you don't acknowledge there is an issue, you cannot improve it. I don't want to say fix it. You cannot improve it, because mental illness or mental health is not something to be fixed. It's something that can be improved and regulated. And with time, we're seeing more and more efforts being done, even in our country, that is pushing for more support for mental health for those employees working in private and government organizations now. Those kind of initiatives really create more awareness and more focus on why this topic is very important.
Especially through COVID, I think it really surfaced to the top.
Yeah. And during COVID, I was actually fine because I was fine being at home. I was comfortable with myself, comfortable in my space, because I spent so much time with myself. And I think it's what happened in COVID. People had to face themselves when they were in their homes. And a lot of times people just run away from themselves by being busy with work, busy with friends. And if you don't take time to really reflect, and I talk about this daily, I reflect daily. How am I feeling today? What's been bothering me today? Where is this feeling coming from? Every day I just kind of sit and listen and observe. And by doing that, I've had more understanding of myself and more understanding on what's happening inside of me, so that if something is bothering me from the outside, I know where it's coming from and I know how to tackle it. And this takes time to really develop. It takes awareness, and the first thing is acknowledging that there is something that needs to be addressed.
You need to first acknowledge that it is day to know that is a sun or it is a moon.
Yes.
Right. And if you don't, you'll always be in an illusion and living in a bubble that is non-existent. It's a very good point you make. And in the entire scheme of things, what you need is also, especially when you understand mental health, when you understand high pressure environments, and when you understand that you're going into one, you need a huge and deep degree of motivation.
Yeah.
So what motivated you?
So here's the interesting thing. During high pressure environments, I'll tell you, before the event, I freak out. I will not say that I don't. I freak out. Sometimes I'll cry. I'll try to let go of any anxieties coming up, because before any major performance or major event coming up, that's when a lot of our insecurities kind of come to the surface. The thoughts that, will I be good enough? Will I do it? Will I handle it? Will I this? But I learned tools and ways. First of all, I acknowledge those feelings. I don't bury them. I'm like, okay, I see you, I hear you. I know you're there. I know where you're coming from. But hey, let's take a minute. Look at what you've done so far. Look where you've reached so far. Remember, you've handled it in the past, so you can handle it moving forward. So it's words like things like, I can handle it. This is an adventure. This is exciting. Just kind of reframing how you view things makes things easier. The more you do that, the more you train your muscles, your brain, yourself to think in a more productive way, in a more healthier way. I don't want to say in a positive way, but in a more healthier way that can actually help you produce the results that you want.
Did you ever reach to a point where you were about to quit and said, I'm done with this? No, I don't want this anymore.
Oh, all the time. All the time. But then what I do is I take a break. Yeah. So what I do is I take a break.
Interesting.
And this is something undervalued, the concept of taking a break. Every time I felt like I reached my end point with something, I take a break. In that break, I realize whether I miss the activity or what I'm doing, or is it my fear that's stopping me, or I've really outgrown it. And every time I've taken a break, I realized what caused me to take that step back to assess the next move.
And it's very much underrated, right? I mean, break is usually seen as a period of inactivity,
Yes.
which is counterintuitive or counterproductive,
Yeah.
which actually in your case has proven otherwise.
Yes. So I've taken breaks from drumming. Like even in real estate, I tell this to people is that there were times, oh my God, like I would get checks and then the deal does not go through. What I do after that, I will take a week break. Just kind of let myself calm down, be upset about it for a minute or two, and then get up and keep going. Because by not acknowledging that disappointment, I'm going to put myself in a negative space and I'm going to follow the, path or the steps moving forward in a unhealthy way, because I will have this negative expectation from a certain experience. But when I take a break and allow myself to be upset about it and then be like, you know what? I really miss it. Let's go back to it. So that's how I do things. And I think it's really something that has been a tool in my career and everything I've done, whether it was in journalism, in sports, in real estate and drumming, it all is very much attached to me taking a break and continuing to do the things that I love to do.
And those breaks have been very much in your favor. I mean, even when after the Rio Olympics, I think your entire trajectory after that changed. Now, what has been your focus ever since then? And how's your view around sports evolved post that experience?
Wow, that's a big question. So sports has changed massively since then. The efforts the UAE has been putting forward to get more Emirati athletes and Emirati women to take part in global and international events and actually qualifying for the Olympics this year has been huge. And it is evident in what we have seen in the Olympics this year. And I think that, it's, when you're a pioneer, sometimes you kind of get left behind though. And this is something maybe not a lot of people talk about because you're the one opening the door. You've dealt with all the struggles.
Yeah, and you're not in spotlight.
No, you're not in the spotlight, and you're not receiving, the efforts that are being implemented now.
That's great to hear. So what's your focus now? Where are you looking? What are you looking into? What projects or goals perhaps you're currently working on? including, I think, there are multiple. You have parallel lives at the moment. If
I have
would
what
say.
lives?
Parallel lives.
Yeah.
I think one is very creative and one is very much process oriented or so.
Yes.
Just run us through what are you doing right now?
So at the moment, I work as a full-time real estate consultant, and I am also growing as a professional drummer as well. So it's really an interesting, situation I'm in, because both things, like you mentioned, are very, very different. But I think it's important to have room for both in your life and not wait to do something until you're ready or have more time or have more money. So just kind of, exploring both paths is giving me the flexibility to see where I can go with both. At the same time, actually see results almost immediately in my approaches.
Both of these fields, drumming and the real estate, is very unconventional as
they?
well. I mean, drumming more so.
Okay.
How did you get into drumming?
That's a very good question. So I got into drumming by accident, like everything else I do in my life. And
You take the days as they come.
I think
no
as they
long-term
come.
plan.
I'm very type A personality, but I go with the flow. So that's a new kind of personality. I don't know, out there, psychologists name a new little personality
You
for
become
me.
a case study.
Case study of Amna Al Haddad. So I started I went to actually a dance studio. And it was a studio, like a fitness studio, that they had multiple disciplines. They had dance, music, acting. They had fitness classes. And I remember one day passing by this window, and I saw people sitting on in a circle playing this djembe instrument and percussion. At the time, I didn't know what was called percussion, and that was only 3.5 years ago. And then I kind of just let's let it go. I just going there to the studio to be fit and be active. And then one day I sat behind this big acoustic drums, and I'm like, this looks so cool. It'd be so cool if I know how to play this. I'm telling you, I struggled to play the basic rock beat for more than 3 to 6 months.
But I see your videos now. I mean, the ones you post. I mean, you've come a long way from there.
I've come a long way. And I think it's really amazing to see what you can. Again, I had no expectation of what I'm going to get out of drumming. I was doing it purely for joy and the enjoyment of playing with others. And trust me, it took me more than 1.5 years to really get a good hang of understanding of playing. And I'm still closing the gap of understanding the instrument, because it's a very intricate instrument, just like weightlifting, by the way. Drumming,
I was going to say that.
yeah. Actually, drumming and weightlifting are both very similar in the sense they both require a lot of technique and a lot of patience. And they are one of the hardest sport and hardest instrument to play. I keep choosing the most challenging things unknowingly. But I think I like a challenge, and I think I like those activities that have a sense of power in them, because I find a lot of healing in that as well. And I'm a very charged person, so I need something to release that, those emotions.
I think you're heading to the right direction when it comes to, first of all, breaking the barriers. I know it's a little bit redundant, but you have constantly shown that, what you can achieve, even in areas that has traditionally been either non-existent or not very common and unconventional in nature. Now, we are gathered here today, it's Emirati Women's Day. And what would be your advice to those women out there today who aspire to break barriers also in their respective fields?
My advice for Emirati women is that continue on the path that you're on. Keep following your goals, hopes, and dreams. And don't be afraid to ask for support or demand for support. I feel we live in a world where we feel like we constantly have to do things on our own to succeed, or on our own because we don't want to burden others. And it's time to change that narrative. It's time to ask others for support, lean on each other to support, and understand what we can do to actually move forward, either in our fields or just in life in general. At the same time, we need organizations, brands, and everybody else to actually step in and take a lead in supporting Emirati women and their goals. That's how we actually succeed and we progress and we create change. It doesn't happen with one person. It's a rare case scenario where one person can actually create, a global change.
Correct.
On
Right.
individual
Now,
effort.
we live in a very interconnected world, and interrelatability is a reality of today. Even with that kind of motivation and with that kind of support, you could run into areas which are again high pressure areas, and you do fall into the mental health loop again, right? What do you have to say to let's say those who are embarking on this journey today? What to expect and how to overcome that?
Anybody that I know who is successful are not people who just follow their goals fearlessly. They are people who actually, again, take time to reflect and assess. And that time to take a break and assess what is happening can truly create that shift in your mindset when you are facing trouble or you're facing challenges.
And then also to know that you're not alone.
Yes, absolutely. And you need, as I mentioned, to reach out for support and for help. And do not be afraid of saying, hey, I'm not okay, I need help. How can I handle this? Or you can say, this is what I need from someone right now. Because when you are in a very high pressure environment, you do sometimes feel like you just want to quit everything and leave and like go live in an island somewhere by yourself. That's me. That's me 100%. But then I'm like, no. I have tools. I have people in my life that I can actually rely on. And, creating a network and a support group for yourself and it could be only 3-4 people. It doesn't have to be, a whole community. But 3-4 people can actually be a whole community for one person. So by creating that bond with others and creating that plan, with someone to say, hey, can we check on each other every, week, once a week, or every couple of weeks, or once a month, just to sit and actually have an honest conversation about what's happening in our lives and how we can actually support each other, whether it's just emotional or with actionable steps. So as a person, you need to understand also what you need from support. And that comes with time and a lot of self-reflection.
It's good you mentioned that, because I think that becomes your very foundation of future success, right? Like they say, a pat on the back goes a long way. And perhaps that pat could change your life completely. So Amna, one last question before we move on to the final question. In your career in journalism, right? What would you say that was your highlight? I mean, you've spoken about sports and you've mentioned a lot of your achievements in sports. There have been certain, and I'm sure there have been certain achievements in journalism too. You're very well achieved person as well. What would you highlight from that part?
So as a journalist, I had 2 very important moments in my career. The first one was actually interviewing Sheikh Ahmed bin Hashar Al Maktoum, who was the only Olympic gold medalist back in the day. And the other one was actually a very important one. And it taps into mental health, where I was actually awarded as the first Emirati woman the Rosalind Carter Fellowship for Mental Health and Journalism. And this program required us to actually travel to the United States and to work with the former First Lady on mental health and how to report on mental health in a proper way that is actually showcasing that illness is not attached to the human and it's a condition that the person is actually going through.
More experiential in nature then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it really helped me a lot understand on how to talk about mental health in a way that really differentiates the person from the illness. And I think that's such a beautiful experience that I had. And I really, I'm very proud of that moment as well as a journalist, because it really showcased that my work advocating for mental health, just in my talks in general, was actually adding value into other areas in my career.
They say, jack of all but master of none. I don't think this applies to you.
No.
Final question for you. What legacy do you hope to leave behind for future generations, particularly, let's say, in the context of the region?
What kind of legacy I'd like to leave for future generations in our region? Just be and live.
Just be.
And just live. Be yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. It's really important when we are pursuing our goals and dreams, we realize that what we're doing is actually is of value to us and is of value for others as well. And not everything we do will always directly have an impact as a value for others immediately. But our goals and our hobbies and interests are meant to be experienced and expressed through us for a reason. And that happens because somebody will be inspired by you and by your actions. For me, it's important not anybody see me as a role model because I don't believe in being seen as I'm here and they're here. This is what role models are. No, I'm not. I'm just a person doing her thing, and people are noticing because it's different, and I'm just really following my heart. So that authenticity comes through, and that's what people are connecting with. So be authentic, be yourself, just be.
Wonderful. And it's very deep, although it's just 2 words, just be. But I think it's a very deep advice. Thank you very much, Amna. We appreciate your presence here today. You're
Thank you.
a highly esteemed, achieved individual. And I'm sure there are a lot of women out there, regardless Emirati women or others, who are inspired by you and your story. And thanks for sharing your story. And I'm sure those who are watching us today will continue to be inspired with your story. With that, thank you very much, folks. We are here at a close. And just as a reminder, women nowadays are taking great leaps. There's a lot of achievements, and we have a very living example ahead of us who started her career and her change-making career at the age of 19. And there's nothing that stops anybody from achieving thing. Just like Amna was saying, just be. And I think that is a good recipe moving forward to continue doing what you're doing. Persistence and consistency is what leads to success. All that is out there is achievable. With that, congratulations to all Emirati women out there. And we wish you all the best, and all the best to you as well.
you.
And congratulations on your drumming and real estate endeavor.
Thank you.
And wishing you all the success. Thank you very much. Goodbye.